Hi, it's Tanya from My Forking Life, and today we're in the kitchen and we're making your favorite churros. And we're gonna make those churros in an air fryer because I like trying any traditional fried foods in the air fryer. Now, if you like to get videos like this, don't forget to subscribe so that you'll be notified anytime I upload a new video. Also, don't forget to hit that thumbs up if you like this recipe or this video, All right, so let's get started. First thing I've done is I've gotten all my ingredients for my churros out here. I have some unsalted butter, got some flour, some sugar. I've got 3 eggs. Let me see if I can show you guys that, as well as some milk and water and some vanilla extract and some salt. Now there'll be some other ingredients that I'll need to reference later because once we're done making these churros, we're gonna also get some cinnamon and sugar and douse them in there. All right, enough chatting. Let's go ahead and get started. First thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to turn on my stove and I'm gonna set it over medium high heat. And what I'm gonna do to that pot is I'm gonna add a little bit of H2O. I'm gonna add some milk. That's 2% milk because that's what we drink. And I'm also gonna add that butter. And you see I've basically cut that butter up into 1/2-inch pieces. That's gonna help it melt a little bit better. And I've also got some salt. I'm gonna add just 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt at this stage, not a lot. Now we don't wanna walk away at this stage. I am just going to watch it because as soon as it comes to a boil, we're going to need to move quickly to make this dough. I'm also adding sugar. The dough needs sugar, and I've got here about 1 tablespoon of sugar that I'm gonna add to this as well. All right, so our milk mixture is boiling. Our butter has not all the way melted, so we're gonna let the butter melt all the way as well. And now that our mixture has come to a full boil, I am going to remove it from the heat, move quickly. Now what we're gonna do is we're going to add 1 cup of flour. We're just gonna dump that flour right in there. And we're gonna use a wooden spoon and stir that mixture together until it thickens to a nice thick paste. You'll try to get that flour to basically incorporate and turn smooth. It's gonna taste like cooked flour. Now this flour mixture is piping hot. We want that to cool down a little bit. So I'm gonna let it rest in the same pot. I've moved it off. I'm gonna let it rest for about 5 to 7 minutes so that it can cool down before we proceed to the next step, which will be adding our eggs and vanilla. So I'll be back. Alrighty, so I'm back. I actually let that dough cool for about 10 minutes rather than the 5 to 7 because I needed to make sure that it cooled down enough before I added the egg mixture to finish off this dough. So I do use a quick read thermometer to just basically check the temperature of that dough. I like to stick anywhere between 145 to 155 degrees, somewhere that low. This is now at 155. So I'm gonna go ahead and start adding my eggs to the dough. So before I just dump the eggs in there, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to break each egg individually into a small bowl. I'm gonna use a little bit of fork to gently, lightly whisk it before I add it in. This basically makes it easier to add the eggs into the dough. And I'm going to go ahead and just put that in there, and I'm going to use a wooden spoon and I'm going to stir vigorously until that egg mixture is all the way incorporated into the dough. And what you'll notice is that it might be a little bit of extra work to get that egg mixture in it, and this is why you don't add all the eggs at once, because you really need to make sure it gets incorporated. Each egg gets incorporated into the dough. The other reason why we made this dough cool is because we don't want our eggs to cook while we're adding them to this dough. If they cooked while we're adding them to this dough, when we actually finished it, it'll probably taste eggy, and we don't want that. I'm gonna go ahead and add my second egg. The other cool thing about this dough is that you'll see it start to be really shiny. That egg gives that dough some gloss. Because you'll notice before we added it, it was super duper dry looking or weird looking, but this gives it some gloss and a little bit of a yellow sheen. Now you can see at this stage my dough is still too gooey. It still needs to soak up that egg. So I'm gonna continue to stir it until it's not as, it's gonna be, I want it to be shiny but not super duper gooey. But like a thick, wet batter. And you can see my dough is still like thick enough to stick to the spoon. So it's not too runny, right? But it's definitely very wet still, or moist, I should say. Go ahead and add about a half a teaspoon of vanilla extract to that dough as well and stir that in. All right, and it is ready to get ready for the air fryer. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go ahead and prepare a piping bag for my pâte à choux dough. I'm gonna use a star tip. I'm gonna actually use this one. I don't know the actual dimensions of it, but it's not a thin star tip. It's a little bit thicker. I've used this one before where it's a lot more open with a little bit of the design on the side. But today I'm going to use an actual star tip. You want to make sure your star tip is just thick enough to make that dough go through. I've got a bag here. There we go. Make sure tip is in there. So I've got my bag, and I'm gonna go ahead and prepare my bag. This is the easiest way to basically put dough into a piping bag, is to put it over a tall glass. I've got a tall measuring glass here, and I'm just gonna dump that dough in there. It's so much easier. All right, so we are ready to pipe this into our air fryer. So I've got my air fryer here. I'm gonna go ahead and turn it on, and I'm going to increase the temp up to 400 degrees. And I'm going to just press play to preheat that for about 2 minutes. I'm gonna go ahead and prepare my basket. So I'm gonna actually use one of these paper liners here. You could also just grease your basket. However, if you don't have an air fryer that has a non-stick basket like this one, I strongly recommend using parchment paper liners. And I'm gonna go ahead and just pipe these straight into my air fryer. Making sure that I'm giving a little bit of space in between each one. Those are a little bit close. All right, so I've got my dough piped in the air fryer basket, and I'm going to bake those in the air fryer on 400 degrees for about 7 to 8 minutes until they're nicely browned. One thing I'll note is that I did not spray these. There is enough fat in that choux batter. There's butter, there's milk, there's also, no, I think it's just butter and milk. Oh, and the eggs, yeah, the eggs. Gives you a ton of fat. So you're gonna see that they're gonna get nice and dark and brown anyways, so you don't need to spray them. Whatever. While my churros are in the air fryer, I'm gonna go ahead and make a cinnamon sugar mixture. It's really easy. It's cinnamon and sugar. So I've got a quarter of a cup of white granulated sugar. And I'm going to add a hefty half of a teaspoon of cinnamon to that mixture. And this is what we're going to dump our churros in as soon as it's done. While I've got about 2 minutes left on my churros, so while I'm doing that and I've done my cinnamon sugar, I'm also going to make a chocolate sauce. I've got about 6 tablespoons of milk chocolate, and I'm just going to add a quarter of a cup of heavy cream. I know I just used a dry measuring cup, but it works. And I'm just going to melt this in my microwave for about a minute. I'm going to check on it after 30 seconds though. All right, so I set my timer for 8 minutes, but I'm going to check on these after 7 and see if they are done, and they are super nice and golden. And here are my churros, and as you can see, they're moving about freely because, it was because of this paper. All right, so I'm going to test one so you can see. So it's light on the outside. When I open it, it's a nice soft dough on the inside. And I'm gonna dump these in cinnamon sugar and continue to cook another batch. Now again, you wanna start testing these, I'd probably start even looking at them around 6 minutes because it depends on the air fryer. I tried these in 3 different air fryers and they were all different random times. So I would start at 6, don't go longer than 10, but usually I would say 7 is a good number. Oh, I can't wait. So I've got my churros that I've dumped straight into my cinnamon sugar mixture. You want to put these in here while they're hot so that they stick a little bit better. If you try to do it when it's cold, they're just not going to stick at all. And I'm going to put them on a plate. There you have it. Churros.